Guys, I'm Tom if I haven't met you, and I would love to start by praying. God, Father, we have no right to even have you speak to us, but you do, and you are so gracious. Please make today something where your word hits us. Please help us to see the relevance, beauty, and the truth of it. Please help me to get out of the way and say the thing that you have for us here in a way that actually helps people in this room today. And help us at the end to sing, reflecting the truths of what you have for us as well. God, we love you. You are so good to us, even when we are not good to you. If you agreed, you said with a big, loud voice, Hayley biggest to the Port Act, and they were lyrics. I'm gentle. So set me apart. Time is you by the star. You grow stronger. You. I want to pick up is it's a negative to be able to miss now, isn't it? Genuinely positive. You need how it works. Down, and it makes no sense to somebody going and for but actually I'm going okay. Stuff. I might write this. It might not be. What we're going to do today, because this is shocking, if please and to him. Hang out with me this wield God's word on this journey. What the unique against putting 5 into the years. Many ways you deal with suffering in every that you have to start off. That there is not just that one day problematic. Is the bring from him something I do for actually his community. Basically, so give your hand left. And so you will get the last from the love you don't have. It's slightly probably some more questions. Hindu is interesting idea of that way. We are quote up for an approach to suffering. Aware of your pain, your capacity that allows us so suffering. Be value. Is the time I read that as what considers why administrative roller coaster be where you're this from just talking God. Lord, that I've no religion, particularly up great Muslim says why is if you one of the suffering cried out of there really is no God for there really is no God to me how you go. Job and I for a weekend I think that is I'm gonna get a gym book around myself with quite a severe we go I'm gonna and so that's like have or you know who and his would be helpful either Joe. If you haven't been with us at church so far, this is the bit to listen into. God and Satan have a discussion. The result of that is that Job ends up suffering at the hands of Satan within the limited sphere that he's given by God. Job cries out in chapter 3. There's some cycle of speeches, kind of Job, his mate, Job, another mate, Job, another mate. It goes on and on and on. They go back and forth. And basically they're saying, Job, this is pretty much karma. You're suffering because you must have done something. And the whole way through he's saying, I don't think so, guys. I can't put my finger on what it would have been. I didn't do something to deserve the suffering that I'm currently experiencing. Last week, Matt took us to a passage about wisdom. And right here, we get to Elihu, who is the last person who's going to speak before God gets involved himself. Now, let's draw a line down the right-hand side of our diagram. What I need you to see here is that there's two adjudicators. If you've ever been to a debate, often an adjudicator will stand up at the end, once it's all been said, once the cycle of speeches has happened, and they will pronounce some kind of judgment, some kind of authoritative stamp. There's two adjudicators in the book of Job, but there's a difference between the two. One's divine, one's human. And so what I need you to do, people have, if you go to like a Bible college or if you discuss with really Bible-minded people and they've read a lot of commentaries, they'll have lots of discussions about is Elihu right or is he wrong? and lots of smart people think he's really right, and lots of smart people think he's really wrong. I think the best way in the middle of that is to go, okay, Elihu is an adjudicator, but he's not a divine adjudicator. He's seeing things a little bit objectively from the outside, but he's not got the same weight to what he says as God. So we're going to approach Elihu with our brains on, but also ready for him to tell us something that the other friends did not. And so, because the whole way through the book of Job, right, if you've been following through any groups, a lot of things, we're in the yep, tell me the truth standard. What I'm with is should Elihu. Now, always a dangerous, just spend like half through there. Whether or not we're with me, should why we probably about 34, let's see why we should listen. And this is in his introduction, chapter 32, verse 14. He steps up and he says, all right, I've been silent until now, and now I'm going to get involved because you guys, Job's three mates, have failed to fully land the plane, have failed to fully grasp what's happening to Job, and I'm going to say something different. So chapter 32, verse 14, he says, I will not answer him, Job, with your three mates' arguments. So he says, I am going to say something different. So that distinguishes him from the other guys. The second reason that we should probably listen to Elihu has to do with the structure of the book of Job. So remember that all the way through, it's something like chapters 3 through 31. It's just Job, his mate, Job, another mate, Job, another mate. It's the cycle of speeches, and it's constantly, Job says something, they respond, he responds, they respond, going back and forth, but there's no response to Elihu. You get to the end of chapter 37, he finishes, and God shows up. Job never responds, and that makes me think we're supposed to treat Elihu's words differently from the three mates. So first reason is that he says he's going to say something new. Second reason is there's no response to what he says. And the third thing is I'll skip forward to next week, actually. We'll get chapter 42 up there. Chapter 42 is going to show us that God gets in as the divine adjudicator, and he shreds, he slams Job's three mates, not his four. So he says, after the Lord had said these things to Job, he said to Eliphaz the Temanite, that's one of the mates, I am angry with you and your two friends, because you have not spoken the truth about me as my servant Job has. And so God vindicates Job, but he slams the three friends, which I take it to mean he doesn't include Elihu. Elihu doesn't get slammed like the other friends do, and it makes me think we're probably supposed to give some kind of weight to what he's saying, but now it's going to get complicated. This sermon is going to get simple at the end and complicated in the middle. Can you stay with me? All right. It gets complicated. Let's go to chapter 34. Because God vindicates Job, but Elihu smashes Job. Pick it up. This is Elihu speaking about Job. He says, Job speaks without knowledge. His words lack insight. Oh, that Job might be tested to the utmost for answering like a wicked man. To his sin he adds rebellion. Scornfully he claps his hands among us and multiplies his words against God. And so you're sitting there going, well, I thought God said that Job had it right, but Elihu's saying Job's got it wrong. And so does that mean that Elihu's got it wrong? Remember, we're treating him as a human adjudicator, not a divine adjudicator. He's got some kind of weight, but we still keep our brains on. Here's the complexity of what's going on. Now, to take you right deep, and this is the most complex bit, but stay with me, we're going to go to chapter, 36, verses 8. Yeah, perfect. There we go. 36, verses 7 to 9. This is Elihu talking about Job. And I think this helps us understand, why does Elihu smash Job, but God vindicate Job? What's the cause of the difference there? Elihu says this, he's talking about God. God does not take his eyes off the righteous. But if people are bound in chains, held fast by the cords of affliction, he tells them what they have done, that they have sinned arrogantly. Now, notice one thing here. If you've tuned out for a minute, tune in. This is an easy bit. Notice that this is a righteous person. This is someone, in a modern day, we'd say this is probably a Christian person. But they are suffering affliction. And so if you've ever accidentally fallen into the mindset that because I'm a Christian, stuff won't go bad for me anymore, this confronts that, doesn't it? Remember, the Christian life is suffering now, glory later, because we follow Jesus, who had suffering now, glory later, yeah? And so the righteous do suffer, but how can they be righteous, and see that bottom line, and have sinned? How can Job, Elihu is saying, man, you're the righteous guy, but maybe what God is doing is he's telling you about your sin. How can he be righteous and also have sinned? Now, if you're not usually in church, this is the bit to really tune into, right? In the New Testament, which is the most clear part of the Bible that we have right now, that we mostly quote from, but we like to get our understanding from the Old Testament. None of us, single church today, everyone is not right. Only guys need a right, how it goes in the New Testament, develop. Instead of talking about someone, and so but does that because and then even though we move Job, so God suffering come to the drawn up. That happens sort of Elihu. Part of the up on the screen is that Elihu says, "Beware of turning to evil, Job, which you seem to prefer to affliction." And so even just, this is not the main point of the sermon, but this might be helpful as a side point for somebody today. If you're suffering evil, don't turn to affliction in it. Don't leave God because you're suffering. Come back to God because you're suffering. Anyway, that's the complexity. Everyone on in. Listen to Elihu. He will be very helpful or get it up for us before. So if you've got, we're going to hang out here and stop flicking around so much. Chapter 33, verse 13. Now Elihu summarizes Job's words. He says, "Why do you complain to him that he responds to no one's words?" So Job, why do you complain to God that he doesn't respond to you? Verse 14. "For God does speak." Ollie, we can get the whiteboard up. "For God does speak, now one way, now another, though no one perceives it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, to turn them from wrongdoing and keep them from pride, to preserve them from the pit, their lives from perishing by the sword." He's saying, Job, God is speaking to you. He has not ignored you. He has not ditched you. In fact, sometimes he speaks to people through dreams, but then we keep going and it gets really relevant for Job. Verse 19. "Or someone may be chastened on a bed of pain with constant distress in their bones. They draw near to the pit and their life to the messengers of death." And what he's saying is that Job, sometimes God speaks through your suffering. Now, we were discussing this a little bit earlier this week with a bunch of people, and someone was like, "Oh, okay, so it's dreams or suffering. I'll choose dreams. Thanks very much. That'll do." But what you need to know is that God gets to choose the method. And what he's saying to Job is that sometimes God chooses to use our pain in order to communicate something to us. Now, if you can't see this, it'll come up on the screen in a minute. But what he's saying for the visuals amongst us is that God speaks. This is how we speak today, through text messages. And he speaks partially through dreams. This is obviously a dream. And he partially through pain, which I don't know how to draw at all, so you're stuck with my handwriting. But then, let's take it all the way to 29:30. It's saying why he does this. She says God does all these things to a person twice, maybe even 3 times, to turn them back from the pit, that the light of life may shine on them. Catch that phrase there, to turn them back from the pit. It seems like all of this is happening with a direct outcome. So let me draw the arrows for you, right? God speaks in one way, dreams. He may speak in another way through pain, and he does that with the same aim in both circumstances. This is what Elihu is saying to Job. And the point is to turn us back from the pit, to turn us back from some kind of negative outcome. The pit is quite hard to really nail down on what exactly is the pit, but at very least you can go, pits are bad. It may be something like death, it may be something like after death punishment, but pits are bad. God is turning us back from something negative, and sometimes he chooses to do that through pain. Let's get the diagram up, Dave. Thanks, man. That's a great picture of pain, I reckon. God speaks in a vision or through pain, and he does it for the same reason in both circumstances, which is to turn us back. Now, I'm confident of that interpretation. Let's get the next slide up there, because he says a very similar thing again in chapter 36, verse 15, right? Same guy speaking, same discourse. In chapter 36, 15, he says, he speaks to them in their affliction. God is communicating something to us in our affliction. We talked at the beginning about how sometimes genuinely negative things can be, even though they're horrifically painful, can be used for positive outcomes. Let me try and quote someone who says it better than me. I'll give you 3 quotes and see if you can latch onto this to understand the meaning. First one. It can also be God's to turn which Job is starting to admonishes Job. God leads in him. He's using of this. He's been suffering from. If your is to I'm sticking to this. The pain, God us. He shouts his megaphone, deaf faith in your life. The possible that us, and then God is such a growing. It's to kind of say when you did something, even if that's not, and family, the reason that his action on illness, things are going. There's a really works and isn't breaking. I use to drifting. People don't wait for good thing. It does me so back to of what was polarized to it, because sting on exactly us closer to God. Except son, God when we're so crazy, and aware of doing something mean anything, because here's why to me this. And sounds good, but that's like a 3. Why would he put me through thing? Or it's one of the differences. New Testament people of heaven and hell, but we do believe heaven and hell are actually quite low for your life to God. This is, and this can by God meant to say not necessarily there is back, and so. As it is, bring to see the small part of small contribution, take out the contribution, so help us round. We don't just have back, we also have a companion in our suffering. God isn't just standing up there saying, it's good for you, deal with it. He entered into the world and he took on our suffering. I think Jesus' suffering probably beats anything that I've ever experienced or will experience. He is not far and detached from our suffering. He is not the unmoved mover. Our suffering is not just a result of some detached karmic process. There is, what was Shakespeare's line? There is pity sitting in the clouds, but it doesn't just sit in the clouds. There is pity and empathy, and I know what it's like, that came into the earth as a boy, grew up into a man, and suffered so horribly at the cross. We don't just have this piece of understanding, we also have a companion in our suffering. And further than that, we also have an end to our suffering. We have a promise that one day our suffering will end. Think about it like this. Without Jesus, this life is as good as it gets. With Jesus, this life is as bad as it gets. We have this understanding which is helpful, but we also have this compassion and this companion, and we also have the promise of an end of suffering. This is actually one of my favorite verses in the Bible. We're going to throw it up on the screen. It describes the end, and it tells us that we will suffer until the end. We need to expect that. I'm not very long along in life compared to a lot of you guys. I'm lining up, realizing that to live kind of is to suffer in some senses. And these tears will continue until the last day when Jesus comes back, but then he will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Can you latch on to that with all of your heart? That is a day that is coming. That is the Christian hope. We don't grieve like others who have no hope. So we're going to sing a song in just a second. We're going to sing one song about Jesus, and we're going to sing one song about the end of our suffering, which is coming. We'll almost sing some of those lines, I think. But let me, as the band come up, let me put it in the words of a Russian novelist, I think it is, Dostoevsky. It's like a cheerful, all contradiction at the so precious of all. If you're me, please can to him. Helpful piece of understanding from Elihu. Thank you that you entered into our world and that you didn't just ditch us to suffer alone. Thank you that one day there will be an end. Please bring that end soon. Jesus, come back and save many people before you do that. God, we love you, and we'll sing to you now, recognizing that you are the one who cares deeply about our suffering, and you will end suffering. Please make us Christians who draw closer to you through our suffering and don't drift and ditch you. Everybody who agrees.